everybody, and welcome into a new edition of Roll Q. Today, I'm joined by the coaches, the team that the guys behind the scenes that help your favorite teams do what they do best. And what do you know? It's all Australians this time around. We've got Rowe, we've got Chuck, and we've got Biggy here joining us here today. Renegades, PK, and Radiance are the teams they coach, for the record, all respectively. Guys, thanks for taking the time. And let's start with what you guys do on a daily basis, because I think a lot of our Smite fans might not know what a coach for an SPL team does for their squads. Biggy, let's start with you this time around. What would you say your primary job is for your Radiance team?
I think for Radiance, it's more just giving them information and kind of in-game almost doing less kind of is better for these guys. I think I'm still kind of figuring out like how to coach them just because they're so different and there are a lot of like confident personalities in game. So for me, it's just more about what I'm figuring out slowly is like do less critiquing and more just like, okay, how do we want to play? How do we want to do that? If the game went wrong, let's just focus on that like at the very core rather than being like, okay, you made this mistake or like we did this thing as a team. And kind of if you get those bases right, then a lot of those things will kind of fix themselves is what I'm figuring out. And yeah, just mainly feeding information. Okay, this is my opinion. Like you should ban this. And then if they disagree, then I'd be like, okay, do this instead or something. So very different to my old team. I feel like on Dig, I was much more of an authority because I guess I kind of wasn't at the start, but the more I was with that team, they were more molded kind of around me as well as them. But I quite like that. I think that's the thing that keeps me interested in coaching is the different kind of players. So it's kind of nice to have a change, I guess, and see kind of the different sides of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Chuck, what about for you? What would you say your primary role is on the Pittsburgh Knights?
I mean, it's a lot of preparation. Like the most important, like because obviously that's the most impact that a coach can have, right? The beforehand stage, because you can't actually talk during an SPL game. So for the most part, you're just trying to get as much preparation out there, recognizing patterns, what works well, what doesn't, why it works well, and then trying to disseminate that into the minds of the players, because they like the information, but it depends on how well the information takes sometimes.
Yeah, I imagine getting that information to stick in Scary D's mind is not always the easiest of tasks, but seems to have worked out for him pretty well so far this year. He's been popping off. Rowe, how about for you on Renegades? What would you say your primary jobs or your job description would be?
Well, I mean, like Biggie, a new team this year. I've been kind of a new team the last 3 years since Energy fell apart, and then PK obviously went 6 different ways, and then this whole team was built, starting with a Millsy and I. With the Millsy stepping out, it was more just me, Ven, and somewhat Barra as well, being the like authority figures or the veterans in the team more than anything else. But yeah, again, a lot of preparation. Basically, record every scrim. Make sure that information is retained, like the lessons we learned go through to the next set of scrims that aren't just like dropped off the edge. Back to prep, it's just like if we have a team on Thursday or a team on like Friday, Saturday, then like do prep on Sunday, give the team a week's worth of like planning, say like by this day I want this to be ready, like this style of comp, because they're going to play this, and basically just plan ahead for the next SPL opponent and be ready. And that includes basically getting all of the SPL opponents, like picks, bans, all that, so I can display them in like an easy to read format to my players so they know what they're up against. And so that we can sit down and have a conversation of what they're going to pick and ban, what we think they're going to pick and ban. And it goes all the way down to like, have you seen these players that you're about to play in SPL play anything specific in ranked like X amount of times to indicate that they'll be picking it this next week? Have you heard any rumors because my players talk? Things like that. Every little bit helps because, yeah, like Chuck said, once we get into game, there's nothing else we can do, right? if it gets to game 3, we're 1-1, picks and bans are done. That's it. My job's done. Like no matter what happens, game 3, my job's done until the end, where I'll do like a post game talk, whether it's good or bad or whatnot. My job is 99% done by the time SPL starts. To be honest.
It's got to be stressful, man. I mean, game 3, it's 1-1. Your picks and bans are done, and you just gotta let the birds fly, so to speak. Is that tough?
Kind of. I mean, if I think we've had like a good game 3 draft, and I'm happy, my job's done. And if they lose, they lose. That's their fault. Like it's not on me at that point. It's sometimes how I see it. But yeah, it's stressful. I'd say the most stress comes from like the tournaments and things like that. That's when it's really stressful. I always found it a lot more stressful to coach than it was to ever play. Just because I don't know, you actually have time to think about what's happening. Whereas if you're playing, you're in the middle of it and you don't have time to be stressed.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I think it's such a different perspective that you're out. It's out of your hands at that point. You know what I mean? You can't control it anymore. As a player, you have control the whole time. As a coach, you really don't. Biggy, I want to touch on something that you were talking about, which is different types of players that you've had underneath your wing. What are some qualities that constitutes an easy to coach player, and what are some qualities that harder to coach players usually have?
I think generally more vocal personalities kind of out of the game are easier to coach. This year I definitely have kind of quieter players. On Original Dig is very loud, and so kind of certain people were coachable in different ways. Like Zares, for example, he would listen to you and like he would take your input, but he was going to play what he wanted and how he wanted, and you kind of had to work around that. Variety was Variety is someone who, when I first joined Dig, he said, "Yeah, I don't take practice seriously, but I'll show up on game day." So I was like, "Okay." So I kind of learned I was like, "Okay," I kind of learned just to not poke that bear and kind of just trust that he's gonna like show up, which he generally does. So, and then there's people like Trix or Horrorwind or like Big Man where they kind of will come to you and be like, "Okay, this isn't going well on the team," or like, "What should we do? Like, should we do this?" And then some people like Benji and Cyclone are generally like, they're so confident in themselves that they don't want a lot of coaching or don't need a lot of coaching. You just kind of have to keep everything around it kind of structured, and then you know that they'll play well and they'll fit in on the team. So it's more difficult in Smite because as compared to like something like League of Legends, you don't have as much kind of say or control, just because of it's kind of like just the level Smite's at in comparison. But
Sure.
I do find that that's one of the things I enjoy the most is like figuring out, how do I need to interact with this player to get the most out of them? And sometimes it's just doing nothing. Like just leaving a player is the best way to get the best out of them.
Makes sense. Chuck, how about in your experience? I know that you've really stuck with PK for the most part, but in your experience, what are some of the qualities in easy to coach players versus harder to coach players?
I mean, the easiest player to coach is always, going to be a vocal one. Like being able to have, a sort of back and forth on what you're talking about and what you're planning. It's always like, super helpful. So, I mean, we've got a few people like that on PK. Neil can't shut the fuck up. Fred's a little talker. Zap's really good at talking. And like on game day, like everyone's, super vocal. So,
Sure.
On a team like this, it's super easy to just like, have a conversation about, what we've been learning and how things have been going. So like no one's like super, ingrained in themselves or like, won't take any criticism. So if something's gone wrong, then it's very easy to be like, hey, this is gone wrong, and everyone's like, pretty mature about that. So that's like, talking, being vocal, and like being open to criticism, I'd say would be, the easiest coachable qualities.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Rowe, how about in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I've had easy and hard players to coach. I think, yeah, I mean, I've coached both of the two first players Biggy mentioned in Zeros and Variety. Variety, I think, is a lot better than what it used to be. At least when Biggy must have joined the team years ago. I just think he's grown as a player since then. He's a lot more involved in prep and things like that these days. So he's fairly easy to coach. He collaborates well. He does have like pretty like firm opinions as well, but he's not hard to convince if I believe something is a certain way. And he puts in the work behind the scenes as well, which is good. Yeah, and like Zeros as well. Like I know I had problems with him last year, but he was just like really, really like firm on what he thought was good. I think he displayed his emotions the wrong way, obviously, but those players are good in one way and bad in others, just because they can be kind of like they take a lot of work, I guess, and that leaves you with less work to give to other players. Like last year, as an example, I think Emilzy like did a really good job. Whereas like I could collaborate with him, but I never really had to coach him. Like I would give him tips and things like that, but I never had to do anything for him because he could do everything himself. He was pretty mature for his age and had really, really good work ethic, I suppose. And then there's like the other side of the coin of easy to coach players, which is like Vote, for example. Vote just did his own thing. You never had to worry about him. He would take criticism if you gave it to him, but he was also just like a really consistent player. Didn't really have any problems on the team. He would not be as outwardly spoken sometimes as like I wanted, for example, but you always knew that he was talking, like he was like thinking in his own mind. Because like randomly he would just come up with like a new build between scrims. It's like, wait, where did you come up with that? He's like, I was just thinking of it during the game. It's like, okay, you know. So yeah, and players that just don't complain as well. Like sometimes you need to practice a pick for 5 games in a week, you know, and sometimes that pick doesn't go good for 4 games. Sometimes that pick's going to be worse in scrims than it isn't going to be in SPL. You don't want players that constantly complain about like losing scrims or drafting poorly in scrims because we have to do this like one draft strategy just in case we need it for a certain SPL day and things like that. So I guess another one as well is players that don't mind losing some scrims, because some players want to win every single scrim, just to like, I don't know, prove a point. It feels better to them, but that's not the most productive way to practice, really. But yeah, I think to sum it up, the most of the players that are easy to coach are just the collaborative ones that have their own ideas and ones that can listen to yours as well, so they can work as a team.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think some people might think of the more talkative players as harder to coach because they're usually a little bit more opinionated, but I think that's a big part of a good player-coach relationship is it's not a
That's
one-way
right, yeah.
street. You know, it's got
Yeah.
to be a two-way interaction, so that makes some sense to me. How much harder has coaching been in quarantine? Because, you know, last year you guys get ready to move in and you're living with your teams, and that was a different dynamic. We talked about that on the last Coaches Roll Q that we did. But now things have changed to where you're with them a lot of the time and you're not leaving, and neither are they. And you guys are all kind of stuck together in the same place. Rowe, from your perspective, how has that changed things for you?
I think I might have a bit more interesting of an answer than the other guys, but like for us, I mean, maybe they'll have the same, but for us, it's changed throughout the year. Like we're still trying to find like the best way to work as a team. I've ended up moving to California just because there was a period of like 4 weeks. We had just come off the mid-season break, and a couple of people traveled during that, so we went down into quarantine. We didn't go to the scrim room. We just stayed there in our own rooms and practiced from our own rooms. And the team environment got a lot better. People started to collaborate a lot more, and people started talking a lot more when they were outside of the scrim room. We hadn't tried scrims outside of the scrim room as this team before, so we've kind of stuck with that. And it got to a point where we were just working in our own rooms every day, and it was going well, and our team environment is still good because of it. But it was like, why am I just working from my room and like sitting in this like the Renegades house, which is a good house to be fair, but like not moving to California to be with my girlfriend like I am now, and not like, I don't know, living a better life. Why was I just staying in my room in Georgia, where I couldn't really hang out with anybody because obviously COVID and all that. So that's why I ended up moving here, and I think I work a lot better here. It sucked though. I think COVID has been horrible for coaching, in my opinion. Just because there's a lot of like stress and a lot of baggage coaches take on as well. So being able to go out on a weekend, release that like really quickly. So, but yeah, and you just bottle it up and it gets worse every week. I think it's also different for me as well because I'm not accustomed yet, or I guess I am a little bit by now, on being on a team that isn't doing the best work. Like we're obviously not having the best results. We're tied for 6th right now, which isn't good enough, obviously. So I think that as well plays into it as well, where it's just been a worse year overall. And maybe the other guys can relate as well, but like when you see the COVID situation here and compare it to like back in Australia, where there's been like no cases for like the last 2 weeks, and I said no cases, but like under 10 or something like that. I don't know, something crazy, and they're like letting lockdown, like the lockdowns being broken, whatever. And people can do whatever they want. People can go to the store without a mask on and things like that, and you can go see your friends. Like I would kill to just like have a big New Year's with my brothers, but that's never going to happen. And all the way down to like personal, like family issues as well. It's like if like right now, like there's a family emergency, like my granddad's in hospital, and he'll be fine. But like if I wanted to go and see him, I have to go to Australia, which means a flight, which is like almost like 20 to 30 hours to get to Australia, to get to my front door. But then we have to go in lockdown for 2 weeks because like we're quarantined because we're coming from a country that doesn't have a very good track record with COVID. So like if something tragic were to happen, like there's no way any of us can be there. We can't get to like a funeral even if that comes down to it, because they're going to happen within 2 weeks and we can't get there. So that also just plays into it. I think there was like a frustrating period for me as well, where I was like questioning what I'm doing here when there was a lot of protests in America, because just I won't get into like the political side of things, but like I just hate like I don't know, the leadership sometimes in this country. Back home as well, it was just like frustrating for a little while. So I think there was like me comparing the US to Australia, and it was like, why am I really here? But in the end, like I love being here. Like I love this job. I love like competing. I like working between players and management and league ops and things like that. This is where I want to be, and I think the ceiling for esports is way higher in America than it is Australia. So I'd choose to be here every step of the way. But there is like it's not without sacrifices, is the way I'll put it.
Yeah, had definitely been tough this year. Absolutely, all the well wishes, of course, to your grandpa for what it's worth.
I appreciate it.
Chuck, what about for you? How has this year changed what coaching has been for you?
I mean, COVID quarantine's always like it's always going to be like the biggest possible impact that it could have on like any sort of job, like this included. Like Rowe said, it's so like you're just with the team like all the time now. And like with this team, it doesn't really matter so much. Like everyone's really good friends. I mean, we see Zap less just because quarantine, obviously. But like, I mean, the biggest thing would probably just be like the impact that it's had on not going into the studio and not being able to play those games on LAN. Everyone together, because Zap plays from his house. We all just play from here. There's no like, I wasn't here obviously for most of last year. I only came in for like the last 2 or so weeks of SPL and then Worlds. But like even just seeing that, like being able to come in, prep for like the SPL match in person at the place, even just the car ride over, like it's so easy to just like talk about what we're going to do. Everyone starts focusing. It's like it's very much like a work environment, as opposed to like here where it's like let's just it's the house, same old. We finish SPL and then slam the ranked queue, and it's like nothing's really changed. We've got SPL next week, and I guess we'll just keep on trucking. So I mean, in terms of that, like it definitely, I guess, makes things blur together a bit more. There's no like, big circumstance around, an SPL match. But yeah, I mean, having said all that, it's I would take it in a heartbeat over coaching from Australia, like I was most of last year, which was not fun, not good, did not like, would not recommend it.
But 0 out of 10 with that one, I suppose. A little bit better at the very least with being here.
Not great. A massive improvement.
Massive. That's what we were looking for. Biggy, how about for you? How has this year been different than in years past because of quarantine?
It's definitely, I think as the years gone on, kind of changed the way I coach. I feel like you have to be a bit more relaxed. You have to show a bit more flexibility and kind of give a bit more leeway to players kind of showing up late, or if they're just not feeling it, or like we have a scrim room, but if they want to scrim from their PC, it's like, yeah, okay. Because I mean, the same thing happened for, like Rowe said, when it was really weird, was I felt like we were a team who didn't talk to each other enough, and then when Benji got COVID and we tried to scrim from our rooms for a little bit just to see how he felt before our games delayed, I felt like the energy was like 10 times. Like everyone was talking to each other, everyone was involved, and I was like, oh, this is really weird. Like this is like, it should almost be the opposite. So then I think
Yeah.
from then we kind of like have slowly integrated back into the room, but like some days Big Man or Canet mainly will just scrim from their room if they're just not feeling it. And like a couple of days, like I was even like, oh, I just not feeling it. I'm just gonna like sit in here and speak less and just kind of watch the games and then I'll talk afterwards. I think those kind of things definitely help because I know especially someone like Big Man or Canet have long distance relationships, which I can imagine would be really difficult right now. And also someone like a Raw who's super, super close to his family, kind of he made the decision not to visit his family mid-season, just kind of out of respect to us, which obviously we wouldn't have cared, but he was just like, oh, it's not really fair. Like if you guys can't go home, then I should stay with you guys, which was like a pretty nice gesture. But yeah, I think just kind of stepping back and being less kind of controlling in a way and just being like, okay, it's a year. Let's just try and get the best out of everyone that we can by giving each other more space. And I think that has definitely helped us kind of perform better because I do think as well we would be a bit more consistent if it was on LAN. Just knowing like my players in the roster. So that's been the main thing. I think is just keeping consistency because you're balancing so many kind of emotions and kind of like sleep schedules. So it's probably the main issue when my players have nothing to do, they kind of will just sleep until a minute before scrim. So
Yeah, do you guys know anything about bad sleep schedules, Rowe, Chuck? I mean, is that an experience that's shared?
Ronnie, wake up. Paul, wake up.
I had more problems with it last year than this
Steven.
year. I think Solo was kind of bad this year, but obviously he's not on the team anymore. But no, I think people on this team are generally pretty good. We have Barra and Ven who are pretty disciplined in that regard. Lazarus pretty disciplined when he wants to be. Sometimes I'll think Harry's asleep, but he's like, no, I was awake. I was like, well, why weren't you reading the messages that I was sending you then? That kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I hate waking up. I think 1 p.m. is way too late to scrim, which is like part of my motivation to like move to California as well. Like it's 9 a.m. now, and I feel way better than I would if I started later. Like sometimes when I get out of bed, it sucks for like 10 minutes, but after that, it's way better. And I was never this kind of person either, so like I don't want to be that kind of guy. But yeah, I just think it's so late to scrim from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. and it's like, well, my night's like done. Like I'm just gonna cook dinner and then just like relax for the rest of the night. It's like I don't get any. I guess like I don't know. It's just weird, like not even seeing like the sunlight as well because you just wake up at 12:30 or something or 12 and scrim
Right.
at 1 and then by the time you finish work it's completely dark and it was just weird, so I didn't like it. I think it's better to be scrimming earlier. I wish everyone scrimmed from 10 a.m. Georgia time, but I can have that here in California, so it's fine for me. Yeah,
Yeah, you guys are the ones
I
that set
don't
up the
like
scrim.
sleeping in.
So
Hey,
Biggy, Chuck, you guys down?
I cannot be waking up the spin at 10 a.m. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
ain't happening.
it's also up to some players. Yeah,
Paul
Yeah.
might still be awake by then.
yeah.
Yeah, you get the tail end of Paul's sleep schedule with that one at the very least. That that transitions me nicely into my next question because I feel like one of the hardest parts of being a coach must be balancing the analytic, diving into the numbers side versus the complete opposite of hard numbers, which is being just there for your team members and being the team psychiatrist at times and trying to work out interpersonal relationships and that kind of stuff. I mean, Chuck, how hard is it to go from, I mean, that's completely one end of the spectrum, cold hard numbers to nothing but talking about feelings and how everyone's mental is doing. Do you find that difficult?
I mean, a lot of the time there's a pretty clear separation between those sort of things. Like, after a game, it sort of starts blending together. If we lose an SPL game, and it's like, well, we did just lose, and this is why, but also we did just lose. I'm sorry. So you've got to like blend those sort of things, you know, carefully, I would say, because I mean, it depends on the player. Like player to player, people are gonna, react to, you know, those sort of things better. Like someone might take, that sort of cold numbers approach better immediately after a loss than someone else. So I mean, it's a player to player sort of thing, and you've just got to, take it by ear. And like, it depends on how the games go as well. If it's even if we lose and it's a good showing, then most of the team, won't even care and be like, well, we're improving. It's there's stuff to take away from that. So it really does just depend, I guess.
Rowe, in your experience, is that a difficult balance beam to walk across?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something I even thought about before coaching because, like, when I spoke to Yaman and got on the energy team for season 5, like, I was just like, yeah, like, I want to do this, like, drafting numbers stuff. Like, that was really, really interesting to me. I liked doing that as a player when I was a player back in Australia. So getting to do that full time was like a really great idea. Thankfully, Energy was a pretty set in stone team already. They're obviously well established, winning worlds twice. So I had a relatively easy time when it comes to like mixing personalities. But we had like Maniac and a Millsy that were like newer to that roster than the others. So that was like we still part of that. But I think I was eased into it because of that. I think when I was on PK last year, that was like 99% like the personality stuff and 1% like the analytical stuff. So it wasn't what I prefer to do at all. It wasn't anywhere near a job that I really wanted to do in the end. I just think it depends on the team. I think I've gotten pretty good at both of them, and it wasn't something that I originally signed up for, but I do enjoy it a lot now. And I think Biggy said earlier as well, it's like getting to learn how to communicate with a team and how to criticize each individual player or each group of players every year that you change. Obviously, he hasn't changed as much as I have, but it's a really interesting part of the job, and I think it actually gives you a lot of skills in life as well. I think I was a lot more shy and a lot more like introverted than I am now, just from learning how to criticize these players and all these different personalities, and working with people all across the world as well. So it's been really interesting in that regard. Wouldn't trade it for anything. Obviously, you'd love a year of like players that are all easy to coach, all get along, and everything's great. But it's not that simple. That never works out unless you're on a team that has been well established, like what Energy was, I suppose. But yeah, I think there's just times you got to be sensitive, and times you just got to be really hard. But that comes with learning how your players take criticism, and that takes time to learn. So I think roster changes, like for my example, every year, and then again with like Variety coming on, he's fairly easy, but like again, that's another player I have to learn to criticize and things like that. So that all takes time. I don't think coaches really get everything out of their players until they've been with their players for months. Like I think coaches' jobs in the first half of the year, not the half of the year, but like the first few months of the year, or at least the season, are way less impactful than what they should be. Unless it's a new team and it's like a coach's team where the team is built around you and basically everything you say goes and things like that, and you form it that way. But yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting to learn how players take criticism and go like down that path. But I do prefer like the analytical side and the analysts and just being able to like go down those numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's left you guys with a unique skill set. That's for sure. That's for sure. No doubt about that. Biggie, how about for you? How have you found that sort of balance?
Well, I kind of hate the analytical stuff, but it's kind of the role I've had to take more this year. So I always did it, like I always kept track of data and stuff, but for me, like I want to be like talking about the macro play and stuff like that mainly. So that kind of switch has been weird for me, but also on this team, it's just not an overly like, sorry, it's not an overly like emotional team. I feel like we kind of win, we lose. Like the emotions aren't too high either way. So it's pretty much just are we playing the way we want to play? If not, how do we fix that? If we are, then like good, and how do we build on that? So this team's because last year or the previous dig teams, definitely a lot more emotional and kind of more vocal. about the game and like winning and losing. But this team is kind of just and we've had some slumps as well, so we kind of gotten a little bit used to losing. So I would say it's mainly just the analytical stuff that I've had to deal with at least this year.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. Wanted to ask you guys about what you find to be the hardest situation for you to come in and talk about. I know, Chuck, you were saying that, sometimes after a loss it doesn't feel too bad because they played well overall and it was a close game or something like that. I'm picturing more like last year when you're walking into the booth after a loss or after a win. Do you find it hard to corral your team if their spirits are too high after they, blew them out into game one, but you need to get them to refocus? Is it harder to rally their spirits after a devastating loss or a blowout loss? Biggie, what do you think is the hardest game to kind of bring your players' mental back from?
That's kind of hard to answer. I think I'm not really sure. I haven't really experienced that too much on this team just because we've just played online mainly and just like best
Sure.
of threes. But I think probably obviously like a hard throw. If you have a game where you should just win and then you lose sieging or something, that can be really hard to kind of come back from. But yeah, I maybe if the other guys speak on things, I might get a bit more of an idea. But off the top of my head, I can't really think right now like what
Sure.
specifically just on this team.
Yeah, I think
Fair
a
enough. You
hard
could
throw
also-
would be one of the hardest
Yeah,
for
go ahead,
sure.
Rowe.
Yeah, like
Go-
definitely a
go
hard
ahead.
throw. Sometimes like if like with like two people or three people have been like really solid on this draft and the others are like, I don't know, but I trust you, and then it's worked out horribly, and those other like there's two sides of the story, and they're like, why did we draft this kind of thing? There's that. But mostly, yeah, the biggest ones are the throws or the really stomps. I remember like let's use. I mean, this is when I was versus Biggie and when I was playing as well. But let's like use game one of our Worlds game against Dignitas last year. Like that, we felt like that was a really easy game, and we felt like every game was going to be like that. And then we got 0-2 reverse swept after that. I just felt like after that game, we felt like it was so easy. And I remember Vote was the one where it really should have been me, even though I was playing instead of coaching, that said like, yo, that was the first game, like relax kind of thing. Because Vote's been to the finals twice. He knows how it is. But yeah, I think either pulling it together after a dominating win and you feel like it's just going to be easy, or I guess it kind of works at the same pace as well, like whereas it should have been easy and you just throw at like one Phoenix, like it's not even like, I don't know, you just, or they steal an EFG with a Yanis ult or something like that, and it's just like tilting. And then you'll get disagreements with players after that, like, oh, we would have lost that game anyway. It's like, well, no, like clearly everything went well. Things like that, I think are the two like highest ends of the spectrum. But then like I think the hardest ones to get everybody on the same page, like the very, very hardest ones, is where it's like a 60-minute game. The drafts felt like kind of 50-50. We felt like we played to our win conditions, didn't miss any. Felt like we played into their weaknesses and not their strengths, and we still went 60 minutes. Some people want to draft the same thing. Some people want to switch it up and kind of stuff like that. I think those are the hardest ones to come back because it's just really hard to get everybody on the same page and have everybody happy. Like with any job, making everybody happy is the most difficult thing. But after a 60-minute game where some people think it should have gone great and some people think it should have even been worse, it's really difficult. And that just comes down to like having your players having trust in you, because ultimately most teams, at least, the coach will have the final say, and they have to go with what you're saying, or they want to go with what you're saying because that brings order to the team. So yeah, I think in like the hardest ones would be like the 60-minute ones, and then after that is throws or like just stomping the enemy team and disrespecting them the next game, things like that.
Chuck, how about for you?
Yeah, I mean, having been on this team, we don't really like we're a pretty resilient team mentally for the most part. Like, obviously, these sort of things are definitely there, but I don't think anyone gets super bent out of shape by like a loss happening, or like winning too hard or something like that. I mean, like I said, it is there, and I think the biggest points would be like when everyone sort of knows that something went wrong, or like knows that we really did a bad job in a sort of in an SPL match, and then it's like, well, everyone, like it's hard to like articulate that when you're just in a group of 5 people, and like no one really wants to be like, we just got stomped 2-0. That kind of sucks. What are we going to do here, fellas? So like that's sort of like the hardest point to come back from, I'd say.
Sure.
Like those sort of, I mean, like Rowe was saying, like super hard blowouts, or like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes
I
a lot of
guess
sense.
I forgot to mention, like, after like maybe I'm the only one that's had experience with it this week, but like not this week, this year, like a 0-4 week where you just have 2 SPL sets and you get blown out in both of them. It's like going into another week of work after that. It's like, all right, guys, like we got a lot to work on, that kind of thing. It's like players don't want to wake up for scrims on Monday, that kind of thing. So that's another situation where it's really hard to come back from mentally for the team, because a coach's main job, or part of their main job, is to just be the glue and pull it together after a hard time like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the time you just need like a day or so between, actually bringing stuff up, because, I mean, players, I like to think, are pretty resilient about these things, but sometimes if you do just get 0-4'd, you just need a little bit of a reset, and then like come in next week and then focus on what you need to focus on.
Yeah, sometimes a day off is worth more than the practice you would have gotten, I think, especially during a long phase, right? I'm getting a lot of looks from the coaches. I don't know. Do you agree with what I'm saying? I feel strongly about it. I really do.
Steven Zappas would certainly agree with you.
Yeah.
Any chance to not scrim? Ooh.
Okay, look, there's a difference between
I kid, of course, but
skipping the scrim.
He likes to joke.
Yeah, but like a mental reset day after a tough week, you guys think that it's more valuable to get out there and work it and bang it out, work on some of those issues than a day of kind of getting their mentals back in order? Rowe, you seem kind of waffling on it.
I mean, a day would be nice, but sometimes we got SPL in like 5 days. Like we don't have any time to, and if I can't double block every day, we're getting like 3-4 sets of scrims before SPL. It's like we're not going to learn much in that amount of time to go into the SPL set. And if we've just had bad results, then we need more practice than that. Like we have to pull it together. And when it's been a long year, like it has been for our team, of like a lot of those results, like it doesn't end. But the mid-season break was good. We lost some of our bye weeks in the first phase. I guess forgot to mention during the whole COVID conversation, where like really the season got delayed 3 weeks, as we know, and those would have been weeks off. So we had a long phase, the first phase, and the second phase is even longer with it going 3 round robins. So
Right.
At least we had the mid-season break. There's a long time until Worlds. There are some tournaments in between, but there's breaks coming up. Everyone's kind of just hanging out for those. I don't think any team is at their peak performance right now throughout the year. Obviously, everyone wants to be peaking at Worlds, but like no team is like working their best right now, because I think everybody kind of needs a break. I know it's video games, but there's a lot of work to be done, and I think everybody needs a break right now. Maybe I'm mostly speaking for myself, but I know I'd like a break for sure.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that. Biggy, how about you? Your players, they say, hey, Biggy, I think we could just use a mental day here. Do you subscribe to that idea?
Yeah, I do. I love a mental day as well. But it's just it's hard to find a balance, because someone like Benji, he loves a 2-day weekend, and like a good like a mental weekend, and then Aurora's like, I just want to scrim, like I just want to double block every day, like I don't want, I'm just sitting here doing nothing. Whereas like I'm like, yeah, just sit there and do nothing. Isn't that like awesome? You don't have to scrim. But he's like, no, I just want to scrim all the time. So big man loves a day off. So it's just hard. It's just difficult to find the balance. Some people want to scrim more. Some people want to single block. Some people want to just double block. So you just have to, I guess, find the balance somehow. Like one thing I was doing was like, would take 1 day off 1 week, and then the next weekend would take 2 days off. Or like if we didn't play till like the Saturday or something, or the Sunday, then we would just take an extra day off and be like, okay, we still have like 5 or 6 days to scrim then, right? So it's just kind of finding that balance, I guess. But my answer for the toughest losses, I think for me, not so much on this team, but because we haven't been in like any major lands. I guess we played the MSI, but I felt like we played well. We just lost game 5. But on Old Dig, I felt a lot was, and I think I'm sure the other guys can relate, is you just kind of get a feeling for when your team's playing well or not. And so when you feel like you just feel like it doesn't matter like what I do, I just don't feel like we're beating this team. For example, when Renegades were like unbeatable, kind of last year in MSI, I felt like every game our draft was decent, but I just felt like I think we had decent early games as well, but I just felt like there's just no way, like we're just not going to beat this team. They're just playing so well as a team, and we're just not on their level. So it's one of those ones where like you kind of sitting there like, okay, I should come up with like some insane draft or some insane game plan where like, oh yeah, okay, we can turn this around. But it's just so hard to do that, to just flick things kind of right there, everything you practice and change. I think that the only example I've seen of that was SK last year when they won Worlds. Like the way they adjusted from the Spy set and then the SSG set, I think, or the Renegades, I think they were then.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like something that like you never really see that happen. Like a team just such an insane turnaround. Or maybe like the old rival team. I think they did it to us one LAN where like I think we had a best of 7 and we had a 1-game lead and we were like 2-1 up and we lost like 3 games in a row and lost, and I was like, yeah, they're just sick. Like what can you do, you know? But those are the sets for as well. Like 5th game and you're like, oh no, it's just like falling apart. And those are the hardest ones because you want to feed a lot of information, but the best thing a lot of the time to do is like Rowe said, like 99% of your job is done. Like you just have to kind of give small bits and pieces and hope for the best. Yeah.
Hands are off the wheel at that point. You're kind of at the mercy of what the team's going to do. And hopefully they don't all funnel into a Giannis portal going into the Titan room against a Discordia. You know, that's kind of what you're hoping for, I suppose. Guys, one of my favorite questions for normal roll queue, I usually I've been disappointed that I can't ask it for the coaches, but then I realized that all 3 of you guys have played against one another in the past in Australia. And so I want to take you out of the coach's shoes and put you back in the player's shoes and have you describe what you guys were like as players. I think this is going to be a little fun. Rowe, what do you remember about playing against Biggy? Or with Biggy? I don't remember if you guys played. I
don't think I've ever played against Biggy. I think.
All right, well,
Biggy. I think you've coached it. Yeah, I think you've coached a team against us before.
Oh, you played against me when I was on at a LAN.
Inside.
When the lane that ElChuckles won, we played in the semis. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I was playing solo lane that one, right? Every time I play solo lane, it goes back.
You were an Erlang abuser.
I was Erlang and Odin, and then we got to finals against ElChuckles team, and then they banned it all 3 games and 3-0'd us, man. Like, what am I meant to do? Those are my 2 gods that I had in the whole role.
You got out-coached.
Yeah, apparently.
Erlang was triple abuser. That's what he was.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was OP.
Dark days. Okay, well, if you don't remember playing against Biggy too much, either if you want to talk about how he is,
Biggy.
you know, when he's slamming the ranked queues, that's fine by me.
Biggy doesn't slam the rank queues. I mean, maybe ranked Joust. I don't know about that. But, no, but I played on. Yeah, I played on a team with Biggy for at least a full year, and then like bits and pieces after that. He even like we played on a full year, went to Worlds together, and I think we split up after that. And then I think the LAN after that, Biggy actually didn't qualify for his team, but then like came on was like a kind of a coach for our team, and we ended up winning that LAN, which was really close as well. So I think Biggy like was the edge we needed. But we formed our first team together, me and Biggy. But I don't know, it was kind of just easy. Everything was easy until we got to Worlds. Like I don't know, just because we were all so less experienced. Like I don't know, I liked the analytical stuff back then. I liked like controlling drafting. I was jungling, and I felt like jungling was kind of the easiest role in a lower end region, just because I could control more. I felt my comms were a bit better than pretty much everybody else's as well, and I just had more experience. I think I'd been playing the game a lot longer than most players had been back then, because I've been playing since 2012. I think me and Biggy definitely had some disagreements though. At least when we got to Worlds, when like the highest. I remember one time there was a world championship. I don't remember which one it was, but like we were just being stomped by Eager. Like I don't know if Biggy remembers, but like we got like 20 0'd by Eager in script, like 20
Season
individual
3.
games. Yeah. And then like we were talking about banning Anubis, and I was like yelling at Biggy, like, we don't have to ban Anubis. He's such a trash god. And we're like yelling in each other's faces. And I think Biggy said, like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, man. I was like, I don't know why I'm yelling about this, but yeah. Yeah, there was definitely like some hard moments when we got to Worlds, but outside of Worlds, it just felt like the region was just at a lower level, so it wasn't that high stress. It was a lot of fun though. I think playing with those players, and I didn't speak to Chuckles back like much then at all. It was always a competitor, always on the other side. Plus, I think like some of like his team players didn't like me, so I was like, oh, like F those guys, I don't care, and we're just gonna do our own thing. So, yeah, I didn't speak to Chuck much before then, but I always respected him as a solo laner, especially once I got to play against him at that one LAN that we lost to him at. Yeah, but I didn't really
Well, it sounds like
compete
he was scared
with
of your
him.
picks. I mean, he didn't let you get any of your signature picks at the very
I mean, it's
least,
pretty.
you know?
If I've got 2 picks, just ban them, and it's free money for him. So I can't blame the guy.
Do you remember what
He
Chuck
needed
was
the-
playing
he
at that
needed
LAN,
the
Rowe?
arm.
Yeah,
I don't
he needed
remember.
the arm.
I think I
remember
think
like it
they
was
put me on like
yesterday.
Bologna or something. Were you playing
Do you
Wukong
remember,
maybe
Chuck?
or Bologna?
I was a dead little Raven main, and I think
Yeah,
Chief
he was
was winning a
Raven.
game or two. Gave me
Raven
old
user.
boom boom, left right, good night.
You fixed that face. Easy
Sure
enough for
did.
you, Chuck. Well, Chuck, what do you remember about playing against Rowe? Do you remember what he went to, or how simply easy it was for you after you banned his Erlang and his Odin?
I mean, you know, in the first year, I was the other jungler, and
Oh yeah, that's right.
I was pretty shit at jungling. I'm not gonna lie. Back in the day, just brain off, no thoughts. But I mean, in that first year, it's like it was always like, it's Rowe. Like everyone else was like, it's Rowe. It's so scary, and it's like, I want to be the guy. And obviously, we never ended up being the guy. And you know, in that sort of region, where it's only like, I mean, in that first year, it was only like there were only like 2 teams that were even remotely competitive. It was Rowe's team, Rowe and Biggy, and then my team, and then
Yeah, I will say throughout the years of like Australian, or when I was paying attention to Australian Smite, it was just like us 2 teams at the top, and it was a big
yeah.
drop off below that as well. So like there wasn't much difference between our teams, but after that, there was a big difference. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, after I switched to solo lane, it started becoming, you know, I started enjoying the game a bit more, and you know, actually playing well, I guess. And then, you know, playing against Rowe was always fun. Like he was always, you know, like on the team that was coming first, or like had established themselves as first, and then, so it was always, you know, good. And then there was a stretch, I think, in the last year of OCE. Was it last year? Maybe second last year. I don't know. It was the last year with LANs, where I think my team just started winning every single LAN, like 2 maybe in a row, and that felt, you know, obviously not for international purposes, of course,
Mhm.
because I'm not allowed to do those as a player. But yeah, I mean, those sort of those games that we started winning, like that was when I was like, very nice. I've finally beaten Rowe. Very good. And then Rowe's team disbanded, and then our team lost all hope, and then OC fell apart. And
Oh no, I should
It's a
have
sad
known it was
story.
going to go down that road. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for dredging up bad
you've
memories.
really brought something up here.
Yeah, sorry about
Yeah.
that. Well, let's stay in the happy zone for what you remember about Biggy's gameplay here, Chuck. Was he a fearsome competitor as well?
Yeah, I mean Biggy only really played in the first year, I think. He played half of the second of OCE, but in the first year was like, you know, the primary one that he played because he was on Avant, which was the top team, the other top team. And it was always like, it was fun. He was obviously very good. I was a little brainlet back then, but it was always Biggie was, you know, the social one of Avant. He always, you know, hung out with us, I think, more than his own team even. So we slammed some assault queues and had a lot of fun. As as a competitor, back when assault existed in OCE, but as a
Mhm.
competitor, I mean, he was always, I think he's even said it himself. He was always more of the a mental player than a mechanical one, which yeah, he obviously enjoyed, and it was yeah, it was it was fun looking for things to exploit, but also not fun getting exploited in the 99% of the other times. So
Yeah, the
a little bit
mental
of,
game was still strong for Biggy back in the day. No doubt
of
about
course,
that.
of course.
Biggy, what do you remember about competing with Rowe or against Chuck, whichever you want to take first?
I remember giving Chuck the business on Sobek at LAN, of course. But them trying to take my Geb, and then I just whipped out the Crocs of 3 games. So, but no, I think I do miss those days. It was a lot of fun. I think the teams I played on were fun. I played with Rowe for a year, and then I kind of wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I just felt like I always was more of a coach than a player. I was like Smite was the first game I ever kind of took seriously, and even when I was playing with Rowe, like me and him were kind of coaching the team at the same time, and I felt like I was almost like a bit of a dictator at times, where like I just wanted people to be involved and give input and improve that way. Whereas like I didn't really take any pride in like being the best support player or being the best player in the world. I wanted to, have good strategies and have good structure and play that way. So I think I've always kind of wanted to coach over playing, just my personality wise. So yeah, I wasn't the best mechanical player. I was terrible at farming. I remember we used to play against Chuckles team, and they would have the Richard Castle Kikiomio lane, and Richard would just always be 2 levels ahead of me, and I'd be like, I don't know what's going on, but like, I guess.
He was
But I would
always
just have,
very upset when we lost to
I would
this
just
level,
have this
level 2
massive
Geb.
a massive jungler carrying me every game, so I was like, it's fine. I just tell people what to do and where to go, and then get carried. So no, I have a lot of fun memories from those days. Playing with Rowe was a lot of fun because I think we think about the game the same way, which is why I think we both became coaches. And then obviously I knew Chuck because yeah, my team was kind of less social, or maybe we didn't mix as well as the Direwolves team. So then I kind of after scrims would just play casuals with them. Like I know Rowe wasn't a big casual player. He would just love to slam ranked all day, where I was like, I was a filthy
Solo queue
casual.
ranked.
I just wanted to play Assault and like the occasional Conquest and stuff, like, and just relax. So yeah, playing with Chuck a lot definitely kind of was where we developed our friendship. And then I think the next year I wanted to coach for Split, and then I kind of had a few things going on personally, so I kind of quit, and then I formed the team as a player. And I think we lost to Rowe's team, and then Chuckles won the LAN. And after that, I wasn't sure. I was thinking about playing, but then I think my team fell apart. Like I think Kiki went to Rowe's team, Kiki was my jungler at the time, and then I wanted to play with Chuckles so bad, but he just won LAN with Avant.
I was a day away from
Yeah.
joining, and then the next day,
Yeah.
you said, "Oh, the team's disbanded," and I'm like, very
Yeah.
nice.
I think everyone left. I think I had another player who's just like, yeah, he was a good player, but he's like, yeah, I just don't want to play this role, so I don't want to play the game seriously or something. So, and yeah, I really wanted to play with Chuck and be on a team with Chuck, but that didn't work out. So I spoke to Rowe and I was like, oh, do you want me to coach? Like, I think I just want to commit to coaching. Like, I think I'm just done playing. Like, as much as I like it, I want to kind of explore that avenue. And then, yeah, we managed to qualify for Worlds again on that team. So
I think
it's
it
kind of
worked
my
out
experience.
pretty well for all you guys moving into the coaching realm. Definitely glad to have you as a big part of the SPL, and keeping OCE alive here in our hearts in the SPL in your own way. Guys, thanks so much for joining us and taking the time. Good luck getting all your players motivated and happy, and getting good scrim practice today. That's the goal. That's the goal at the very least.
How's it going to be, Chuck? How's it feeling today for scrims?
Looking out, it seems we're prepped and ready. I'll see you in
How many
a
players are
minute.
there?
Man,
All of them,
it's gonna be-
surprisingly.
Wow.
Ooh, wow.
Neil was
that's
on
a
wake
treat.
up duty today, but otherwise we're all here.
Maybe we can get a
Beautiful.
20 kills at 8 minutes banger again. Those are my
Yeah,
favorites.
maybe some 60 minutes slanders just to get that
I
blood
like
pumping.
those.
Absolutely. Sounds like we got to let you guys get to it. Thanks everyone for watching here on Roll Q, and we'll see you next time.